Okay, Friday. These come around quick, don't they? Very, very quick. So, who have we got? Sola's there. Sola's in Iceland, I think. Hello. Maria, we've got there. Coco Fusion HQ's joined. Hello. Miss Tiff's Caramel. Hello, Miss Tiff. Louis Beckett's joined. Who else have we got? Gosh, loads. Loads tonight. Just let a few more people join in. And that number's going up quite quickly. So, good evening. Good evening. Hello, everybody. I'm getting loads of waves. I'm trying to add the waves. So, who else we got? Who else? I hope everybody's had a good week. Has everybody had a good week? Has everybody been making chocolate? Yeah, I've had I've had a lovely week actually. The children are off school. It's the last week of kind of summer holidays, so we've been doing dad-daughter stuff, and you know what, just kind of doing crazy things, making chocolate, I've been playing with some designs, some stuff that I posted this week. I think I post these bits and pieces, and some of it's development work. I'm not actually producing at the moment. I'm doing odd wedding favours and bits and pieces here and there, but nothing like full tilt at the moment. A lot of it's like planning for Christmas and just looking at some new designs. And the temperature is still a little bit too high for me to get some of the details that I want to. And you will all know that if you need to temper your cocoa butter. You need to look at all these temperatures, but like mould temperature, the temperature of your mould and the temperature of your room, they are so crucial in trying to get shine. I find if the room is around about 18, 19 degrees, sweet spot for me, and I can temper the cocoa butter. I can use it at 25, 26, 27, as long as the room temperature is kind of below 19. So that is the sweet spot for me. That will change for people around the world because of air pressure, because of many, many other factors, humidity being one of them. So so Irma's joined me, Nadia's there, somebody's saying they got a ton of questions. Okay, so who else? Liz Mosley. Liz, hi. Gosh, there's loads joined. So I got two questions this week, two things that were kind of quite popular. One was about Christmas and in terms of planning for Christmas. And that's a tough one where you are in the world. So one was about planning for Christmas. The other one was about, for anybody that's in the UK, we've got Natasha's Law that comes in on the 1st of October. And I'm going to start off with covering that one because it's quite a meaty subject, that one, and I get the number of questions I get about labelling and what label should I use and how should I label. It's almost become confusing. So we've got in the UK we've got this Natasha's Law. Firstly, it's not a law. It's an amendment to the current laws. There was legislation put out in 2019 about labelling. And that was in addition to some allergen laws that came in on the 13th of October 2014. So that was 7 years ago. So I don't know what our American cousins do. I don't know what people do in kind of other parts of the world. But we have this legislation that came in and we need to follow it. And the 14 allergens that you need to cover, chocolatiers are kind of under the spotlight because of nuts and sesame. They're the major causes of anaphylactic shock. So, and Natasha's Law is just an amendment to the current laws that are in place. So, with the label, and some of the questions I get are really, really confusing because people are saying like, do I need to put the label on the outside of the packaging? Do I need to put a label on the inside of the packaging? So, if I cover this in a couple of slots, all right. So this is with like food safety officer hat on. The current law says that you need to list and you need to make available the food allergen, so the 14 allergens that are currently on that list. Big ones that, there are some that don't affect us at all. So fish, mollusks, they don't really need covering because highly unlikely that you can have fish or mollusks or anything inside a bonbon. I don't think they go with chocolate. Another one is celery, highly unlikely. However, there's a couple of big ones which are the nuts, so whether that's tree nuts or ground nuts, and sesame, and the other one is gluten. So, and obviously the big one is milk, right? So milk, lactose, milk is the allergen as labelled. Lactose is the content of milk. So if you use cream, it will have lactose in it. You can use, there's other products that have lactose in, and this is where your label, this is like knowledge of your ingredients is kind of so important. So you've always had to label those. You've always had to have this declaration of what's in there. What's actually going to change? And Natasha's law, this amendment to the law that's coming out, this is about pre-packaged direct sale, right? So PPDS. So pre-packaged direct sale. It used to be this situation where the whole of industry, you have these files, whatever, if you're in restaurants, if you're in hotels, if you're in cafes, you'd have this file with all this information in. And if somebody asked, you could actually produce that information and give that information over, and then the customer could make their decision. You didn't actually have to label a plate or anything. But there were parts of industry that didn't have to do that, and one of those was the ready-to-eat food. So this goes into like the sandwich shops, where you could go in and they would give you the allergens for the bread, so gluten, made in a factory that handles sesame or uses nuts, and then the fillings. But the problem is you didn't actually have to describe everything. You didn't have to put a label on the outside of it. So when they took it away, there was nothing on there to say what was in it. If it was handed over to somebody else, there is still nothing on there. That's actually what's changed. So if you're a bonbon maker at home or in a small business, when you make your chocolates, you want to do your label now from the 1st of October. So this is for the UK people. What you need to do now is list things in order of amounts. You don't need to put the weights, you don't need to put the percentages, but you need to label everything. So if you use, I don't know, say Biscoff, that's an example, isn't it? So the Biscoff recipe contains gluten, it's got xanthan gum, it's got soy lecithin in it, it's got sugars, it's got palm oil, it's got all these kind of bits and pieces. Those need to be on your label as well now. If you are distance selling, so that is taking your taking your product and you're posting it, you need to make sure that there is information available in there, and it does actually need to be in there. So one of the questions I got this week is, will it stop me producing the variety that I used to do? No, it won't. It will all come down to administration. The 14 allergens that you should have been labelling, you should have been doing that for 7 years now, because that came in 2014. So what needs to change now, best practice, and the problem with these laws are, they're not that, if anybody's ever seen a copy of the Food Safety Act, it's an A4 bit of paper, it's got a few lines on it, but there is nothing specific in there that says you've got to use colour-coded boards, you've got to do this. What there are industry best practices, and the best practices, they change area to area, environmental health officer to environmental health officer. This is where it comes a little bit tricky. If you are directly selling to the public, as in you're making chocolates, you're putting them in a box, you're posting them, that's not direct to the public. That is distance selling, so you need to label it. With Natasha's law, if you're making chocolates and you're running a stall, all you ever had to do was say, the chocolates contain this, this and this, and you could put it next to it. What you need to do now is actually have a label that goes with it. So every variety, so every type of chocolate that you make now, it would be best practice if you had a list of what actually went into it. So this is all going to come down to administrative and how good you are an administrator. And if I think about my time as a food inspector, when we went into places, if it was a little bit untidy, not broken any laws, you could have had a massive delivery. Somebody's phoned in sick, there aren't enough staff, still haven't broken any laws. So it was a little bit untidy, okay, that's fair enough. If it was a little bit grubby, well, it could have been a really, really busy, productive day, and you're going to clean down at the end. Again, no laws broken. when we actually start looking around at leading edges to see whether the underneath of tables are being cleaned, that will kind of give us an idea on the level of detail of cleaning. But the big thing we'd look at is admin, and if we've got the files and not much of it's done, that's the biggest inkling for us as inspectors to say, this person's not really taking it seriously. With your labelling, rather than to make it hugely confusing, have a look at each bonbon that you make and do a list of all the ingredients that go into each one. You can get those into a square. The allergens need to be in bold, but all the ingredients need to be there. So if it contains palm oil, if it contains inverted sugar, if it contains, I use something called Ultratex, which is E104, and all it is a starch. It's a modified starch. I just need to label that on there. It doesn't need to be in bold because it's not got gluten in it, but I will put it on the label. I will put all these elements on the label so that it's crystal clear. Your EHOs that come in and inspect you, certainly for the guys in the UK where we've got the scores on the doors, if your administration is strong, all right, you're going to get 5. Because if you're going to be pursued through court, if you make a mistake and you get pursued through court, and you kind of go in front of a judge, and your defence will be due diligence, and your defence of due diligence is always going to be, I did everything possible, I did everything that I know to do, and I'm going to claim due diligence, and that all that means is I did everything right, but it went wrong. And it's, trying to pursue somebody when they're claiming due diligence, when they've got all their admin and everything's right, highly unlikely. It's kind of almost be a judge might say, do you know what, you've done everything, you've never been in trouble before, you've done everything right, your due diligence is there was a mistake made, and it happens, all right? If you haven't got all your admin there, and you haven't got all your evidence there, and you haven't written all your recipes, and you haven't got all your bits and pieces there, the chances of a prosecution are going to be really, really high. So this is down to administration. This is down to you writing your recipes, knowing what's in your cocoa butters, knowing that you're using titanium dioxide, knowing what colours, there's a whole other, labelling is so complicated. You start looking at the quids, the quantitative measures declaration, it gets really, really complicated. For Natasha's law that's coming in, my advice to everybody that's asked so far is, for each bonbon that you make, draw up a list of all the ingredients that go in it. You can compress that as small as you want and then print it onto paper, put that in with your chocolates. You can still do your lovely wrapping, you can still do your ribbons, but you need to have the information in there, because the information's got to be available for a product that might not be open before the consumer gets it. So that's for pre-packaged direct selling, all right? So somebody walks into a shop, buys a sandwich now, that label has to have everything in there. It can't just say tuna and mayonnaise sandwich. It's got to have the bread, it's got to have, what is in the mayonnaise, what oil was used in the mayonnaise, what egg was used in the mayonnaise, what vinegar was used in the mayonnaise. There is an allergen, sulfur dioxide is related to that. So just to reiterate again, your labelling, doesn't matter how big or small you make it, the allergens need to be bold, only the allergens that you use, and they need to be identifiable, but also you need to have all your ingredients there. If you do that, you will be on safe rails, is my advice. So any kind of questions regarding that, I can cover that one out again. Christmas will come to in a minute. Just going to say hello to a few people. Who have we got? Rania, hello. Blind Chocolatier, hello. Emma, hello. Fudge Company, hello. You posted some lovely stuff this week. Melissa, Chocolate Escapade. So there's a question here. So it's very good you're covering Natasha's law. Question, please. I make chocolate, as you know, weekly, and I put only allergies when I pack and send. Do I have to describe what's in every single one? Yes, you do. You need to be crystal clear on what ingredients you're using. Natasha's law is not a law, it's an amendment to the current regulations. The law came in for labelling allergens, and this is about allergens, all right? The law came in on 13th of December 2014. So we've had enough time, we should be doing that anyway. You need to know what ingredients are in your stuff, because if somebody asks, you need to be able to tell them, and if you can't tell them, that's the point that you would kind of be breaking the law. So my advice would be list everything, you know, pick all your products, line them all up. It's a straightforward task if you save it on a computer that you can just copy and paste and bring across. Print off your own strip, how you fold that, how you present that, that's totally up to you. But I think the days of having the menu cards printed, you can still do that, but every time you change a range, that's going to get very expensive. My advice has been to you can get the sticky labels, you can get Dymo. I think Dymo do a printer roll, which is very, very good, because it's not ink, they're thermo printed, so they go onto a sticker and you can put that on the inside. But you need to describe, and you need to label all the ingredients in your chocolates. And it's habit. Once you get used to doing it, it's administration, right? So once you get used to doing it, once you've lined them all up and got them all ready, that's kind of the big task done. Any new ones that you add to that, once you've had the idea and you've done your run-throughs and you've done your rehearsals, that just becomes a sticker that goes with that chocolate, if that makes sense. So a few more hellos out there. Oh, I tell you what, I do want to give a hello out to. If any of you follow Ron's Bonbons, I'm just going to give Ron a shout out. Ron's in hospital, and he's had quite major surgery. I won't describe it, but yeah, he told me what's going on, and it's this area. And yeah, he's quite a poorly boy. So any of you follow Ron's Bonbons, he does some amazing stuff. He's in Pittsburgh, but he's in hospital in a minute. So I said that I would give him a shout. He's not watching right now because the nurses has just turned up to do a cardiograph. And I did tell them, like, you should tell them to wait because we're on IGTV. But he's, yeah, give him a shout out if you know him. Yeah, he's a poorly boy. Could do with some hellos, I think, from the chocolate world. And I know how really friendly everybody is. So, yeah, Ron's Bonbons, if you don't know him, you should follow him anyway. He's one of the good guys, and he will always share a recipe. He will always share some advice. He's got some amazing stuff on his page. Go and have a look. He's very, very talented. But he's a little bit poorly at the minute, so yeah, go and send him some love. Another question, Ahmed. Hello, my friend. What about soya? When I mention it, because I use soy lecithin. Right, soy and soya are different things. Soy is the byproduct of the bean. Soya is a mix made from fermenting wheat and vinegar, and they brew it for 2 years, and you get soya sauce, right? Soy does need, and that contains gluten. Soya contains gluten, so if you've got soya in something, you'd need to declare the gluten element of it. Soy is an allergen, and yes, you would need to declare it. Soy lecithin, and this is a strange one. So chocolate industry for years, certainly white chocolate had soy lecithin. You are seeing more and more and more using sunflower lecithin. Lecithin isn't the allergen, soy is, right? So you're finding more and more suppliers moving away from soy lecithin and using sunflower lecithin because it doesn't need to be declared. All right, so I hope that answers that one. Fancy Nancy, I love Ron, he's such a nice guy. Ron is a really, really nice guy. He's one of the nice chocolatiers. I have so many conversations with him. I'm sure as soon as the nurses have finished with him, he described to me a little bit earlier I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but yeah, so he had heart surgery, but it was done robotic, and I thought it was going to be cut open and, you know, have a rummage around, but he was describing it to me literally just before I came on camera, and I was kind of, my eyes were watering a little bit. But yeah, he's one of the good guys. He's a really, really nice guy, and he posts some amazing stuff. Another question, how can I stop sugar and fat from blooming? So fat bloom comes from poor temperature. Yeah, so fat bloom comes from poor temperature or poor tempering, all right? So not all the crystals are melted, and then when you go to set it, what happens is they float to the surface because you haven't got all your crystals in line, all right? Fat bloom, it looks great, it will wipe off. It doesn't, if it's very light, it doesn't hugely affect taste. You can get it on one edge of you can get it, you can do a tray of 32 and get fat bloom in 2 of them. Not so bad. Very often it will kind of wipe off. Sugar bloom is a different thing altogether. Sugar bloom is not something you want, and if you see that in the chocolates, that again, it's always poor temperature control. Sugar bloom very often you get when your fridge is too cold. So you do your shells, put them in the fridge for too long. Actually, let's describe this properly. Temper your chocolate, polish your moulds, temper your chocolate, pour it in, turn it out, tap it. You should leave it on the side for it to fully crystallise. As soon as it's fully crystallised, 10-12 minutes maximum, goes into the fridge. Mine is set at 10 degrees. Yeah, it says 11 degrees. Mine is set at 10 degrees, so not cold, not cold. And mine, generally, they go in there for about 6 minutes. I normally put a timer on. Very often, yeah, I'll turn the Alexa on and literally time it for 6 minutes. The sugar bloom comes when it's too cold, right? And what happens is you get this water vapor on the top, and that it literally starts dissolving the chocolate, and then the sugar comes to the surface. And actually, when it goes cold and the moisture dissipates, what you're left with is this looks like water droplets. It's not water droplets, it's sugar. It's where the moisture has pulled the sugar out of the chocolate, and that's not good because texturally it ain't going to be very nice. If that happens, I would leave the chocolate at room temperature. I'd let it completely dry, and then I would crush all that down, and I would probably retemper it, and I would certainly add an amount of new chocolate to that. Sugar bloom, not good. Fat bloom, yeah, that kind of happens, and it depends on. People are obsessed with shine. Shine is good, don't get me wrong, but the bloom on the inside of the mould, the inside of the shell, people aren't really going to see. Once you've piped, if I'm honest, once you've piped a ganache in there and it's all balanced, I don't think you're going to notice. My hand on heart, I have seen it, and it does happen to me. It's just a case of getting the temperatures wrong a little bit, and a few minutes, 30 seconds can make a difference between seeing fat bloom and not when you get the temperatures too cold. And when the temperature outside is fluctuating a little bit, if you're in a room that's not got air conditioning, it's going to be a bit of a pest for you. So I hope that answers that one. Everybody's saying they love Ron. He's such a good dude. I really hope he's watching this, actually, Ron. Regards from everybody. What else? I store my bonbons in a wine fridge, and find lately I'm getting condensation in my airtight plastic boxes. Put the boxes in the fridge, store the boxes in the fridge, and then take them out, put the chocolates in, put the lid back on and put them in there. Condensation happens when you go from warm to cold and cold to warm, so that's just one of those challenges. Unless you've got good air conditioning, where everything in your room, if you set it at 21, everything in your room, from the floor, the table, everything will be 21 degrees. You don't need to worry so much. But actually, if you're working from a fridge and you're going in and out, it's just one of those hazards, isn't it? I know I had a conversation with somebody earlier in the week about getting the temperature of their moulds down so that they could spray, and putting them in the fridge. Not something I do, because actually as soon as I take them out, I get that mist, and as soon as you spray onto that, you end up with undesirable effects. So that's one of those things. Another question then: for cocoa butter, is it necessary to follow any ratio of colouring, or can I just mix them according to my own preference? I wouldn't suggest I would not suggest that you just kind of add stuff to stuff, right? I think you need to be a bit more measured. If you weighed 100 grams of cocoa butter that you wanted to colour, you'd add 10%, so 10 grams of colour. That's a good ratio, right? If you wanted to get a better opacity to it, you would add titanium dioxide, in which case that'd be another 4%, so another 4 grams, right? Keep them in, if you randomly do 33 grams of cocoa butter, you're going to need a calculator to work out the rest of the ratios that go in there. What you want to do is just do weights and measures that you can remember and that you can record, so that you can get your percentages right, because ratios are just percentages. But yeah, for colouring, yeah, 10% colour, and if you want that brighter colour, you need some titanium dioxide. If you don't want to use titanium dioxide, colour your cocoa butter. You need to blend it, really blend it well. You need to temper your cocoa butter first, then blend in your colour. I would sieve it. I would get an immersion blender on it and really get it blended. I would leave it in a bottle to just set and solidify. Then I'd retemper it again and have a look at it and see if it behaves for you. If you wanted to get that brighter, you can always back that with a white chocolate, and that'll give you a similar look to having titanium dioxide. Another question: what do you suggest we do for Xmas Advent to be ready? Right, Christmas. This is such a big one. There's people been sharing stuff already, right? Thing with Christmas is, it's again, this is all about admin. If you think you're going to get to December and go, well, I'll do some Advent calendars, I think you'll find there won't be any in stock. And I think if you go and look now, you might find there's not that many in stock. I think Christmas needs planning. A couple of questions I got this week. One of them was like, should I do 4, 6 or 8 flavours? And my answer was 4, alright? Do four amazing chocolates, not 8 average ones. The only reason is, right, most people, can you remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago? Because most people would be like, oh, well, I had, this is an advent calendar. 4 amazing flavours. If they're 4 amazing flavours, they're not going to judge you because there's only 4 flavours. They're going to judge the calendar because they weren't great flavours. So having 4 amazing ones that you get in rotation is absolutely going to be fine. So don't make Christmas complicated. You need to get an idea of like how many would you want to sell. If my plan is I want to do 200 calendars, right? So got 200 calendars. If they sell out really quickly, I'm not going to sweat it. I'm not going to try and find new ones. It's not lost revenue. I achieved the volume that I wanted to achieve. My lesson for the next year will be, right, well, let's up that by 50% and we'll do 300. Or you say, well, let's double that and we'll do 400 and I'll do the same process. So I think Christmas is about knowing what volumes. Pick a figure of volumes that you want to do. You need to, before you even start making chocolate, you need to make sure you've secured the packaging, and that's the inner packaging, the labelling, the ribbons if you're doing that, the silkworm liner if you use those, tray pads if you're posting stuff, including the outer boxes, all right, because they become the outer post boxes. They're even more difficult to get than the packaging. So, and if you're doing advent calendars, I've seen some amazing ones. Nicolette was posting some stuff this week, and the ones that she's doing this year are just absolutely amazing. And she's working on that now, and I don't know how many she's going to do. I don't think she would let that piece of information out. I would hazard a guess she's picked a volume amount that she wants to do, and she's going to stick by that. And once she's sold the last one, she will say to herself, that was the goal I set, that's how many I wanted to sell. I've got none left which have got this year's date on it, so any that are left, what are you going to do with it? Nobody wants it. Do you want last year's calendar? So pick your volumes. Before you even start making chocolate, you need to secure all that packaging. And then don't make it complicated. The more, for everybody that did, well, here's one. For everybody that did the chocolate bombs, I saw some people, literally like the stress early in December where they'd chosen to do 16 flavours or 24 flavours. Too much. Do you know what people love? Chocolate bombs sell. Advent calendars sell. I've got a little visitor. So all that stuff sells. The more variety you offer, you're just going to make yourself more stressed trying to find all those. Then add in the labelling, then add in the packaging, then add in all those other bits and pieces. Christmas, pick your volume, don't go crazy with your variety, and stick with what you know. I don't think it's the time of year to start inventing crazy stuff. I think, salt caramel. You put salt caramel in anything, it sells. You put caramel in anything, it absolutely sells. You put hazelnut praline into anything, it sells. So less flavours of good quality is always going to kind of win you that Christmas thing. So you're saying, what's that where the other thing, well, here's an interesting, what do you suggest we do for I don't freeze or keep chocks in the fridge, but I was thinking to start with ganaches that last for 8 weeks. That's a sore point for me. You should freeze. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong at all with freezing your stuff. You want bonbons that are going to last for 4 weeks. Not a difficult, a really, really good salt caramel. You get 8 weeks out of a really, really good salt caramel, if not 12 weeks, all right? Because they virtually, once you boil that to 103, there's no water content left in it. So water availability, generally a really good caramel, if you cook it to 103, even if you mount it with butter afterwards, you're going to be around about the 0.7, 0.71, 0.75 of AW, which is beyond 12 weeks. So pralines, again, virtually no moisture content, so again you'll get another 2 months, if not 3 months out of that. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with freezing to build your stock up so that when you're ready, just before that week before, you can get them all filled and you get them all posted out. Nothing wrong with freezing whatsoever. What else have you got? Have I got a wine fridge or normal fridge? Normal fridge. Normal fridge. Like I said, I've got two 700 litre Fosters, and then I've got the same 2 700 litre freezers as well. Freezers are set at -24, and the fridges are set at 10. And I've got humidity absorbers in the fridges as well. They get rid of smells, and they keep the humidity. I mean, they virtually no humidity in the fridges. So I think the other thing about the fridges is don't stack them up too much. If air can't circulate, very well, yeah, you're gonna have problems with that. So that'll do that. 200. So wow, 200. Wish you good luck. I'm hoping to do 70 or 80. Pick your number, it's a costly investment, the packaging, certainly the calendars, right? So pick the number that you want to go for and set yourself as that goal, achieve that goal, and don't wish you bought more. Just leave it there, all right? Because what you don't want to do is be left at the end with more, because you can't use them. And you certainly can't wait a millennia for that to come around again. So if I do chocolate bars, what do you recommend the temperature of the room and the fridge? I don't do chocolate bars, purely do bonbons myself, and Easter eggs and truffles. But the temperature of the room depends on the size of the bar. I think with bars, what's important is actually, when you cast them, is to have, you want some air circulating. There's a lot of latent heat. Have I got a mould here? Yeah. With the bars, all right. Because it's a solid piece, you end up with a lot of latent heat in this area. So these need raising up, and you need some air going over the top, you need some air going under the bottom. Otherwise you get these kind of striation marks, or you get what are moulding marks. So, and what I mean by that is, when you turn it upside down, you see it's retracted, but there's this like blank that hasn't. And very often, that's, as the chocolate's cooling down and retracting, it gets to a point where it just can't move anymore, because of the surface area. So if the room's 21, it'll crystallise. If the room's 21, it'll crystallise. If you want to speed that up in the fridge, you can do. You just don't want to put it in there for too long. I think, having spoken to somebody recently, the worst thing is actually to cool the mould down before you do it. The other thing is you don't want to heat the mould up either, to try and get rid of that. To try and get the fluidity right. You don't want to, there's always this task of, well, I'll just hair dry or warm up the mould a little bit, but what happens is you end up with all this bloom. Equally, if you put them in the fridge too early before they fully crystallise, you're going to get other bloom. So, below 21 degrees, chocolate behaves quite well, all right? Once it's over 21 degrees, and then once it's over kind of 50-55 humidity, chocolate starts misbehaving, and that's the thing. Louis Beckett, quality over quantity comes to mind. Always quality over quantity. I worked in the hotel and restaurant industry. Just as an exec chef, I opened some of the biggest hotels in Europe. When I see menus that have got 50 or 60 items on, I'm that's not quality. That's just lots of food that's prepared that's probably older than I am. And I mean that jokingly, but more choice isn't more quality. Actually, the more choice there is, the less quality there's going to be, because you won't be focused on the tiny details of each of those items. So yeah, quality over quantity. Lots and lots of choice. Lots and lots of choice confuses customers as well. And you know, and I'll stick with this. You know, I've friends in restaurants, 2 Michelin star, friend up in Cheltenham. He's held 2 Michelin star for years. I think he has 2 starters, 3 main courses and 2 desserts. He's packed out 5 days a week, lunch and dinner. The quality is absolutely amazing. He won't budge from it. He doesn't need to. If he started doing 10 starters and 10 mains, he would just lose all control over everything. So, Ivy House, thank you so much for your common sense approach. It's all common sense. Please don't make chocolate. Please don't make bonbon making more complicated than it actually is. Who is it? Is it Nancy that said to me, like, all my customers all they want is salt caramel? Awesome. You can find other avenues to do the creative thing, all right? But you know, salt caramel, you need cream and sugar. There's and some salt. There's the filling, all right? So your inventory on your shelf or in your fridge, that's quite good actually. Do you know, if you've got bonbons and you've got 16 different fillings, that's a lot of inventory on your shelf. That's different frozen fruits and different sugars and different different bits and pieces. That inventory goes up and up and up, and that's money on your shelf, not money in your bank. So yeah, don't make it complicated, all right? People, if you're doing a really good quality product, people will buy it. Chocolate sells. People, it's still a necessary luxury, and I'll say that again. It is still a necessary luxury. People still see chocolate as an affordable luxury. I am staggered how much people will buy, how much volume. Can I have 10 boxes? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah, it will sell. So here's Irma. I made 22 flavours last year, and guess what? I had marzipan advents separately, and one advent, no gases. Yeah, 22 fillings is just, you're making a rod for your own back. Like, you just don't you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it. And you know, these places that are telling you they've got all these hundreds of different fillings, like, I'd be inclined to not believe them actually. Sorry. So sorry, you said your fridge being 10 degrees, my fridge won't go more than 5. How do you turn it up? I don't know what fridge that is. I got mine from a specialist dealer, a really good friend of mine who found me the fridges that I wanted to do what I needed them to do. So I don't know. I don't know what fridge that is. That one fridge here. Should I look into humidity absorbers for my own wine fridge? Would that help with the condensation? Condensation comes from a couple of things. Like, have you ever heard me in a kitchen when I was kind of walking around, I constantly shut the fridge door, right? One, it dries up the power, it turns the condenser unit on. The other thing is, because these are big fronted doors, when you open them up, when you close them, they suck in a load of warm air. The number of times that you open the fridge will dictate how much condensation in there. The fridge will take out all that, moisture out, right? So an empty fridge is very, very dry. The more times you go in and out, yeah, the moisture is gonna, you know, the moisture and the condensation will build up. No different to taking a cold drink out of the fridge. You leave it at a room and at temperature, and you get all the water on the outside. Exactly the same process. When you take something that's warm and put it into a cold fridge, you get condensation the other way around. So how often you go in and out is kind of important. What scales do you have to use small amounts of ingredients like titanium dioxide? Let me find them. Where would they be? These are called, oh, my scale's gone. These will go up to, can't find the name on these. Can't find the name on these, and I don't have the packaging. These go up to 50 grams. So I can measure up to 100th of a gram. So they're very sensitive. If I'm using not so much agar, I use a lot of iota carrageenan. So so for the pastry stuff, if I'm doing some of the glazes, to set a litre of cream, I need 0.4 of a gram. And to measure that, I know you measure it into there and you look at it and go, that's not going to set a litre of cream, but it does. So I don't know where I've got those. I think I've got those on Amazon. So there's some good ones. Look at the reviews and find one. They're not hugely expensive. So and if that one, Ghost Ship. Yeah, have a look. Yeah, you want micro scales, right? So that's what you want for that. Which restaurant in Cheltenham? Champ Sauvage. David Everett Mathias, so Champion Sauvage. Very cool guy. I use the same ones for weighing spiders in my other side of life. Spiders? What? Okay, yeah, lost me there. What else have we got? Is Ron here yet? I've not seen him. I've not seen him yet. Anybody got any more questions? I'm trying to scroll through. There's so much stuff here. So here we go. I love you, Paris. How do you fix over crystallised chocolate? I'm finding my chocolate thickens really quickly, and I don't get a nice thin shell. Right. Okay. this happens a lot, and I find that if I temper if I table, I find the chocolate gets very, very thick, and it traps a lot of. And the reason we don't want thicker chocolate is it traps a lot of air bubbles, and then when you go to cast shells, you make a lovely design, and you end up with like those little air bubbles that are stuck in it. Because believe it or not, the thicker the chocolate, the harder you have to tap, and the thicker the viscosity of it, the less air bubbles that come up. So if your chocolate's over crystallized, a couple of options: hairdryer, clean one, not a heat gun. Heat gun is just too much heat. All right, you don't want to blowtorch and caramelize creme brulee the top of your chocolate. So a hairdryer just to warm it up a little bit and just raise the temperature. What happens is when it over crystallizes, once it starts going down in temperature, the way all those crystals line up, they just start locking together, and you get this quite viscous mass. So one way is to warm it up a tiny bit, all right? So you want to raise it by a couple of points of a degrees, not a couple of degrees, just a couple of points, and you'll find it come back down. The other one is to add fresh calettes into it. If you add some new chocolate into it and let that melt through, you'll find the fluidity will come back down. Obviously, when you do that, you just need to dip your paper or whatever you're doing just to check your temper again. But yeah, thick chocolate, that's happened to me a few times. If I'm doing big amounts, I use micro. I don't have tempering machines. Not really there with that yet. But if I need to do something that's over kind of 3 kilos, like look, you're doing Easter eggs, right? You need quite a big volume of chocolate. I'll use micro for that. But I find that once I warm it up to 34 at the micro, bring it back down and start using it, like milk chocolate down at like 30 degrees. I find that that's very, very liquid. And it takes some time to find that crystal, but you find this point that as you're stirring and stirring and stirring, and stirring will promote the formation of crystals, right? So you can't just add something to it, give it one stir and go, go on, you're tempered. It doesn't work like that. So movement, all right? You need to make sure the movement. If there is too much movement, you will overstimulate the crystals, and that's when you end up with overly thick chocolate. So melt it down a little bit with a hairdryer, so just to bring the temperature up a tiny bit, or add more chocolate to it and stir it through, but you can't use it until that chocolate's fully melted. So yeah, I hope that answers that one. And I don't get a thin shell. Thin shells are not the be all and end all, alright? How thin? I've never measured them, and I've never measured somebody else's, because I'm just not that, pictures on Instagram, you don't know how close up that is. You don't know whether that was just one of the end and it cut really nicely. You don't know many things. You don't know how big that mold is, right? So it's perspective, isn't it? It's the perspective of it. One of the things I'd say about thin shells is that they're not very stable and they don't retract very easily. And don't be so obsessed with thin shells. When I say thin, if they're paper thin because you want to have this lovely picture, well, that's great, but you might find that they don't withhold posting somewhere. And yeah, I kind of mixed feeling. I have my own mixed feelings about that. I think that a shell that's too thin doesn't retract very well. A thin shell doesn't have time to the fixopic adhesion, the point where the cocoa butter sticks to the chocolate. If the shell is too thin, you won't get retraction, and when you turn it out, you'll end up with all these spotty bits of cocoa butter stuck in there. So thin shells don't make. People are buying chocolate, right? If you make the, you know, the filling might be made with the chocolate, but that's been thinned down with other elements, right? So, you know, whether that's cream or sugar or fats or whatever you put into the ganache, the actual chocolate that you're selling is the shell. So don't make it too thin, because that's actually the chocolate bit, right? What's that? The name of the scale? I don't know the name of these scales. Fudge company. I teach animal management. Okay, that explains the spiders. Okay, I don't like spiders. My girls don't like spiders. Huge spider at the door the other day. How can you freeze bonbons if you don't have a vacuum sealer? You can. Let me get a tray. I freeze them in these. So these are A4 storage containers from that famous online store. I think you can buy boxes of 10. So basically I will put tray paper in the bottom of here. I'll line all the bonbons up. I only do one layer. I will then do 2 layers of cling film, very, very tight. I'll put the lid goes on, then I'll wrap that one more time, then I'll label it and document actually what's in there, and they will go into the fridge for 24 hours, so they cool down. Then from the fridge they go to the freezer, and then when you take them out they go to the fridge for 24 hours, then they come to room temperature for 12 hours, and then they're ready to go. If you take that out of the fridge and you try and grab them, what you'll find is any moisture that is on there, because they will attract condensation within a split second, when you go to pick them up you'll just end up with coloured fingers. So I hope that answers that one. But yeah, you can freeze them. Vacuum sealing them is a really good thing. What you do need to do is leave the bag on the outside of the machine so that you don't compress them and crush them. Very often people will put them on those trays and then they'll vacuum seal the tray with the lid on, right? So that will solve that, but you're not putting it under immense pressure. What you're doing is just cutting the air off, no different to covering it in cling film. What you can do is, IKEA do these big 5-litre bags. Those will fit into those, and I'll just seal it. If I want to, between the bag and the box I can put a piece of silica gel just to suck anything else up. But that's if I'm doing long-term storage. I don't freeze for more than, I think the most I'd ever freeze something for is a month, just to build myself some stock level up if I've got a lot going out. So thank you so much for all your answers and help. Natasha's law is something I need to concentrate. I thought I didn't need to worry as I don't sell in a shop. I change menus so often. Yeah, you know what, you need to document your stuff. I think that your distance selling, and I think that, you know, this is about shops, this is about direct sale to customers, so they give you money and you hand over the chocolates. However, I think that there'll be some points of law, and I think there will be some best practices that environment health officers, and this is me thinking with a food safety officer hat on, I think that food safety officers can interpret this region to region very differently. You know, and as I've worked around the country, I've opened hotels all around this country, and each place I go to, I have slightly different things that I have to adhere to, because there will be a best practice locally, and then there are insurance issues as well, and insurance is what dictates practice very often. So my advice is get used. It's no different to when the food allergy laws came out, right? We were all kind of like, oh God, we've got to do this, this and this. Well, you have customers and they have allergies. and you need to respect that, and we need to make it safe for people. We are in the business of making chocolate and selling chocolate for people to love and like. Loving and liking doing the admin for this should just be part of habit, right? If you don't like doing all this admin, and you don't like doing all the allergen thing, it ain't going to go away. It isn't going to disappear. If you don't get on top of it and you don't embrace it and become, have it become part of habit, it will just come back and bite you on the bum. And significantly, with food safety, right? With food safety, if somebody gets food poisoning from a toxin, I can take samples, right? So you might not be in the sample, so it's kind of irrelevant. It could be a wedding party of 60 people and 2 were ill. Blame might not be on me, because it could be the carrier, it could be the glass, could be the drink, could be the spoon, could be the plate, could be something there on the way there, could be many different things, right? With the food allergens, when somebody says to you, I can't have sesame, and you feed them sesame, you in effect poison them. So you'll be in court very quickly. It goes to small claims court. It can happen on a Monday. You could find yourself in court on Thursday. You could find yourself in prison on Friday. So it can happen very quickly. With the food allergen stuff, get on top of it. Get used to writing your labels. Get used to writing your recipes. We all write this stuff down. You just need to do it in a more formatted way so that you've got evidence. And your evidence is what, 1, helps the customer, and 2, saves you or gives you due diligence. You've done everything you can do, possibly, to make sure it's safe. So, if you've got work to do on that, I guarantee if you sit down and just give yourself a single day to get all this stuff done, you'll be done. Because once it's done, anything you add to that will be a small task. When you've got to do the big whole task, yeah, that's when it's a little bit daunting. And I remember 2014, I was running a place with 7 kitchens, and I had to sit down and do 7 kitchens, and I had to write allergen sheets for every single menu item across 7 different outlets, and I sat there for 3 days. Once I'd done it, it was like, it's done. Anything we add to that, it would just be a menu at a time. So, and then decided I wasn't going to change all the menus at the same time. We changed them place to place. So, hi chef, can I use box UHT whipping cream instead of fresh heavy cream? Yes, you can. I do a lot of training. I do a lot of coaching for people that are in the Middle East, and one of the biggest questions I get is I can't get alcohol sugar. So people that are working in Saudi, Middle East, you can't get sorbitol, you can't get sugar alcohols, and also you'd be amazed how many countries don't have fresh cream. Like, we take it for granted here. I've worked around the world. Not everybody has fresh cream. Not everybody can get butter. Not everybody can get these ingredients from all these recipes. So UHT cream, yes, you can use it. I would use it like for like. Very often it'll tell you the fats percentage on the outside. So cream here is between 32 and 35% fat. The UHT stuff, UHT cream, will have that declaration. There is cream alternatives, substitutes as well, which is buttermilk. But they've got additional things that you need to have a look out for your labelling, because they'll have xanthan gum in, they will have emulsifiers in there, very often they have palm oil in there. But if that's what you've got in your country and that's what you can use, yes, you can use cream for cream, not a problem at all. I absolutely understand. From all the training that I've done and all the places that I've worked around the world, when I see these recipes where it says, 50 grams of sorbitol, 150 grams of fresh cream, and people contacting me saying, we don't have that. We can't get that where we live. Okay, well, this is the alternative. So, yes, you can. If anything, UHT cream is a little bit safer, and it has a lower water content. So you will find that when you come to emulsify chocolate, UHT cream is, because it's ultra heat treated, it's homogenized, right? So actually, when you come to do emulsify it with a stick blender, you'll find it goes absolutely silky smooth. I'm not going to say I prefer it, but I do recognise that I think it makes a slightly better ganache and a better shelf life as well. For anybody that wants super duper long shelf life, don't know why you'd want that. Yeah, that will work. So, vegan chocolate creams. Do you suggest coconut cream or water, please? Both, whatever you want to do. Coconut. If you want to use coconut cream, you can. It needs straining, it needs blending really well. I have a dark chocolate water ganache that I do, which I really like because it's really clean, and it just leaves, there's no fat impurities in it, right? So it's very clean, strong cocoa mass taste to it. So I quite like it. I do use it in chocolates, even though they're not vegan. I will use that one. So yeah, I quite like that one. It's a case of getting the ratios right. You need to use the same chocolate. It works better in a higher percentage chocolate. So where I'm using one that's 70, it works really good for me. Coconut cream, yes, you can use it if you're doing a coconut flavour. I think the expectation with the vegan fillings is that these, the coconut cream, coconut milk, coconut, it's kind of a part of the course, right? So I think there's an expectation that will be in there. I just need to make sure. I think you need to make sure that you label that properly, or you describe that properly. So, not a problem. Last question, not a problem at all. I'm the only person that doesn't like thin shells. I like crack when I bite into it. I've been doing this a while. I've been a chef a long time, and the things that I recognise now. When I was beginning years ago, when I went into kind of Michelin star kitchens, it was like 20 ingredients on a plate, and then as I got up into 2 Michelin star, 3 Michelin star, it was 3 things on a plate, 3 amazing things on a plate. I would say with chocolate, this is logic for me, alright? So this is my opinion, take it or leave it, I don't really care. When the shells are paper thin, what you're selling is chocolate. So if you're saying, right, well, I'm going to use Valrona's Manjari chocolate, and the shells are paper thin, and then you put in a hazelnut praline in it, right? Ganjuja, whatever you want to call it. That's the if the shells are really thin, the overwhelming flavour will be the filling. If the shells are really thin, you're not going to detect it. And the problem we've got with chocolate is, the difference between taste and flavour is this, that it's hard to get flavour in because flavour is smell, right? So you can taste something and get the flavour, but you can't smell something and get the taste. Does that make sense? So with chocolate, when they bite into it, they then get the flavour of it. If the shells are really thin, and it could only be a couple of grams, but we're selling chocolate. We are selling chocolate. If you're going to name and label the chocolate, thin shell doesn't do it for me. I'm not hugely impressed by super thin shells. I'm really impressed by lovely flavoured chocolate. So if I'm buying chocolate, imagine if you got an Easter egg that was paper thin, I would be fuming, right? I expect a level of thickness, and you can get thin shells that have a good bite, and you can get thick shells that have a good bite. And I'm not talking, there's a difference between thin and not like paper thin. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. We're selling chocolate, so use chocolate. So, Ivy House, what would your must-have equipment for a start-up chocolatier be? Chocolatier business. Loaded question on that one because is it Maurice? So you can start off a business with plastic bowls and you can temper and seed, right? You can do it on a metal table, so you don't need marble. You don't have to have the latest, craziest priced spatulas and whisks. You can get away with minimum. If you're just starting off, do you know what I think like you don't even need an air compressor or an airbrush, right? You can paint, you can use fingers, what you do need is good moulds. You need really good moulds. Don't scrimp on buying moulds, right? The higher quality moulds have got such a better shine finish to them, right? And you can't really see that there, but this is a newly polished one, and they're almost mirror-like. Certainly I can see my face in them, right? So the cheaper the mould, the cheaper the turnout's going to be. Or they'll crack, or they'll shatter, or they won't wear. So you need good moulds, you need a good thermometer. Other than that, you can get round. I think I said last week, I was working in hotels. We didn't have the big scrapers. We just had a really heavy-duty metal ruler, which we pushed down the mould, and it worked, right? It wasn't Carlos Fandango, the latest crazy price kit. So I think you need good moulds. I think you need good chocolate. I think you need a good thermometer and a clean working space. from there you will build up the, you need to, as you get busier, you will need to invest in technology. You will need to invest into good equipment. So that's buying better fridges, that's maybe buying an airbrush, that's maybe buying a compressor, maybe getting a tempering machine. Cole, I think he's in Texas right now. This is a young lad that I've helped out for quite some time now. He's just bought a Rev 2, and he did 150 bars yesterday. He started a couple of months back, but he's starting to invest already because the volumes have got up. So you don't need to go all in with the latest kit to start with. What you need to do is grow slowly and invest wisely. So it's not about having the latest trendy coloured spray brush, or same with moulds. If you've got too many different shapes, it's not going to fit in your packaging, then you're going to end up buying more moulds, or you're going to end up buying more packaging. And packaging is probably the most expensive part of this trade. So how long do we have to keep the labels for? So I sell a chocolate this week, 6 flavours, next week something else, and again and again. Right, whatever you're selling needs a label, end of story. So if you do something seasonally, if you change your menu 4 times a year, that's 4 lots of labels. That's absolutely completely up to you how you do that. If you want to put individual cards in, if you want to name all your chocolates and do an individual card, and you put each card into the chocolates, that works, right? So changing flavours lots is going to cause you more admin, right? It's not going to make life more difficult, just how quickly you can get the admin done. Sorry, another question. Don't need to say sorry, another question. Ask all the questions you want. What is your preference, cream ganache or water ganache? Both have their place. If I was doing, say I was doing passion fruit, no, that's a wrong example because I would never put passion fruit with dark chocolate because that doesn't work. If I was doing, say I was doing strawberry as a pâte de fruit on the bottom, I would be unlikely that I'd put a water dark chocolate or water ganache on top of that, because it would just overpower the strawberry. So equally, if I was doing something like what do I want? Something with dark chocolate. Yeah, do you know, if I wanted to do a multiple layer praline on the bottom and a dark water ganache on the top, that would work. So it's about balance, isn't it? So I don't have a preference. Both have their use. The trick is to make it and taste it, right? Make a small amount and taste it. If you've got your flavours, if you wanted to pair strawberry with something, get a piece of strawberry, get a couple of chocolate calettes and taste the difference raw. And it will give you an idea. It won't give you a textural idea, but it will give you a flavour idea as to whether one outbalances the other. So Nadia, yeah, but please don't say sorry for asking a question. You can ask as many questions as you want. Nadia, hi, nice to see you. Nadia did some lovely. Nadia's used my mint chocolate ganache, and it's like I think some, and I think you did the caramel as well, didn't you? How did you substitute sorbitol for liquid glucose or invert sugar? Right, good question, that one. Right, sorbitol is a glucose would be entry level hygroscopic sugar that we would use to bind up water in a ganache, right? Invert sugar and glucose, very similar, right? But inverted sugar, actually, you know what? Callie Youngstead posted an amazing thing today of how to make your own invert sugar. So if you have a look at his page, he's done a recipe of how to make your own invert sugar. Invert sugar is very good at binding up water. Slightly better than glucose. The only thing is, it's probably about double the sweetness of glucose. So you need to be careful where you use it. It is probably better with darker chocolates than it is white, whereas glucose is probably better with white and milk than it is with dark, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, Callie Youngster, have a look on his page. He did an invert sugar, how to make it start to finish with malic acid or tartaric acid. I use malic acid a lot, and I think it's very, very helpful. But sorbitol, Nadia, sorbitol is even better at binding up water because of how hygroscopic it is. It will bind and hold water. And if you've ever heard of isomalt, isomalt is even better. If you've heard of something called galactose, yeah, that's even better at binding sugar. So they've just got different properties of binding water. Glucose is a good one. I think you all know my thoughts on these massive shelf lives. You know, somebody gave, here's some chocolates at 2 months old. Not really. So whichever one you want to use. Invert sugar is a little bit is a lot sweeter. I think it's about 50% sweeter than glucose, right? But yeah, Callie Youngstead did the invert sugar. Make some actually, because it's literally sugar, water, bring it to boil, add an acid, bring it to the boil, and then let it set. And if you made them and tasted the two, it will give you an idea. They will bind up water in a ganache. They're heat stable. They prevent crystallization. So they're useful. They've just got posh names, right? But they're quite useful. They are just types of sugar. Another type of inverted sugar is honey, and I prefer that as an inverted sugar. Only it is sweeter than glucose. So if I had a lime, I am working on say lime, honey, and ginger ganache at the minute. So I'm going to use inverted sugar for that rather than glucose, just because. I'm going to boil the honey down, so I'm going to get the flavour, but I'm going to lose the volume in there, so I'm going to make that back up with inverted sugar. What else have I got? Oh, I almost cut us all off then. Okay, sounds yummy. Dark water ganache, yeah, lovely. Can I send you my chocolates, please? And you tell? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course I will. Do a critique. So Melissa, chocolate escapade, couldn't agree more about the shelf thickness. We get I get on my high horse now. I'm not. I think it's well known. I had a lovely chat with Andrew Thwaites, actually. If you know Andrew, up there at the York Cookery School, and we talked about shelf life and we talked about shelf thickness, and we had a right. And we're two old guys from industry. I think that we get so obsessed with shine. And I do it. I turn chocolate. I posted today. I tip them out, and it's like, oh, I'm good. But you know what? I need to get the fillings in them. I think we get so obsessed with seeing these visions of this perfect shell. Actually, what you want to do is make perfect tasting chocolate. Just, if you buy you go to France and you buy a traditional box of pralines, there ain't nothing shiny on there. It's amazing chocolate with amazing filling, with a nut. If anybody follows Andy Schaefer, who's in Iserlohn, I used to live in Iserlohn, and I vaguely remember the chocolate shop that was down there. Whether it's the same one that Andy Schaefer's at, he does massive volumes. He does some shiny bonbons, but it's really old traditional praline, or praline, what we used to call praline. And there ain't no shine. The shell thickness is quite good. You're buying chocolate, you're getting chocolate. You get any of those and you're like, well, hey, we get a little bit obsessed with this like super thin shell. I'll tell you one thing, a super thin shell won't hold a super thin base. So, there we go. Need a good thermometer. Thermopen. Thermopen are very good. Look at the reviews. I think look at what industry uses, alright? So a cheap thermometer will give you a cheap reading. What's that? Fancy Nancy. I purchased a Rev a couple of months ago and haven't used it. I love my melter and silk. Yeah, I'm waiting to pull the trigger on silk, whether I do Magic Temper. I'm looking at a new one on the market at the minute, so I'm just in negotiations with them. So that's a great idea for the flavour trick, yeah. What else? Agave or maple going into a recipe, glucose or invert sugar. Right, agave and maple syrup are simple sugars, so no different to stock syrup, right? So they are not inverted sugars. It's not an inverted sugar, and it's not a polydisaccharide like glucose, right? So if you're going to add agave or maple syrup, they come out as sap juice and they're boiled down, right? So they are literally just sweeteners. If you put them into something, they're not going to bind up water hugely well. They will give you a flavouring. You are still going to need, if you're going to use something like maple syrup, you're going to need to use some inverted sugar or glucose or sorbitol to give you the binding water properties. But having said that, right, if you're only going for a 2-week shelf life and you've got a balanced ganache, and by means like third chocolate, third cream, third sugar, and then one of those thirds has got a third of extra fat content, you're going to get 2 weeks. So I rarely offer more than 2 weeks shelf life on chocolate. That's just how I go. Right, any more what time is it? It's near that time. We've dove an hour, haven't we, already? Alright, I'm going to get going. I had a little girl down here sat waiting for me to Daddy, can I have a drink? So if there's no more questions, I will post this to IGTV a little bit later on. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope it's answered all your questions. I'll post this to IGTV later. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Have an absolutely amazing weekend. Keep safe. Pop over to Ron's page and send him a message and say get well soon, because I think he could do. With cheering up a little bit. I'm going to certainly give him a message in a minute anyway. But thank you to everybody that joined in tonight, and I will see you again next week. These come around really quick, don't they? So if you've got anything you want to talk about, if you've got anything you want me to discuss next week, ping me over a message. If it's urgent, I'll try and answer it. If it's not, and it's something you want to talk about or we think we should bring up at this forum, then by all means ping me a message and I will get back to you. All right, guys, have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Give Ron a shout and say hello, and I will speak to you all next week, guys. All right, take care. Bye bye.